thanks for joining me. I am so happy to be back for our Studio Monday series once again. Now that Stamptember is over, we're back to our regular schedule. And today I have a card featuring some Studio Katia products. The stamp set that I'm using is one of the newest stamp sets from Studio Katia. I'm also going to be using this stitched rectangle, creative stitch rectangle die. This is the MEOWY Halloween set, which I think is so cute. I love that little kitten. She is adorable. And there's some cute pumpkins in here also. And I'm going to be pairing this with some pattern paper from Pebbles' BOOTIFUL collection. So I've taken some of the stamps and I'm inking them up intense black ink. Now the reason I'm choosing the intense black ink is because I'm stamping onto some watercolor paper. This is hot press watercolor paper. And I'm going to be doing some watercoloring, but I'm also going to be showing you a technique that I had featured in a card recently during Stamptember that had used colored pencils and Zig Clean Color markers together. And I had planned on featuring this technique anyway, but many of you had left me emails and comments saying that you were interested in knowing how I did it. So this was an extra reason why I wanted to be able to feature this particular technique on this card. So I chose to use hot press paper because I wanted to use something that didn't have much texture. You can use any type of paper you like for this technique, though I do find that the colored pencils blend easier on a less textured surface. Bristol smooth paper from Strathmore would be another option. What you're seeing me do right now is applying a light layer of color onto each of my images. I'm basically putting a first coat of color onto every single image that I'm going to be using in my card. Now you do see me have only 2 pumpkins here and some candy. I decided not to use the candy and instead added some extra pumpkins to the mix, but you'll see that later on. What I'm doing right now is I'm taking the Zig Clean Color markers. These are the real brush markers, and this is what I had done in the card that I had made over Stamptember, is that I took Zig Clean Color markers and then went over top of that with Prismacolor colored pencils, and then went again back over that with Zig markers once again, and that created a really intense look. And I wanted to show you how I did that. So after I've applied a layer of color onto every single image that I'm using, I'm bringing in my Prismacolor colored pencils and I'm going over the areas where I want everything to be darkest, and I'm applying down some shading. Again, now I'm going to bring in my Zig Clean Color marker and go back over top of that shading, and I'm going to blend it out. And what this does is it creates a very intense shadow and highlight in your image, because the colored pencil is adding some depth and some additional detail to the watercoloring that's a little bit harder to achieve with watercolors alone. So by using the colored pencils to add the extra detail, we can then go over top of that with the Zig Clean Color markers and get that neat watercolored look, and it's a very smooth and even texture, but it has that intense detail and you get a really great contrast. The Zig Clean Color markers are also intensified a little bit by those Prismacolor pencils underneath. So this is an amazing technique that is so much fun to do, and I've loved being able to incorporate this into some of my watercoloring. Now I'm going to do this for every image that I'm using. This one here, I used a yellow marker to color in the pumpkin. I added some orange undertones with the Prismacolored pencils and then blended that out with the yellow, and you can see that creates a really nice golden highlight to these pumpkins. I did the same thing for this pumpkin. However, the first layer was done in orange, then I added the undertones with the Prismacolored pencils in orange as well, but then the final watercolor layer I did with the yellow marker, and that creates again another golden tone to this coloring. It's really fun and great technique to play around with. So moving on to creating my shaker, I'm taking that creative rectangle from Studio Katia and I cut it into some of that Pebbles pattern paper. I'm going to be using these 2 pieces. So I used the plaid, and that's going to be the frame of my shaker, and then that star pattern is going to be the background of the shaker. I need to add some die cut elements, so here I'm using some grass from Fawn. These are the GRASSY hillside dies, and I've cut them from some green apple cardstock, and I'm going to be layering these to create the hills in my scene. I wanted to add a little bit of shading though to these hillsides, so I took my markers here. These are my Copic markers, and I used 3 different shades of green. And I'm adding just a little bit of shading along the areas where the grass is going to be the darkest, and that's just going to help give this grass a little bit of depth. So I used a YG25 for the darkest color. Now I'm adding a little bit of YG13 over top of that. And then my final color will be YG21, and that creates a nice little bit of a highlight and shaded effect to these grassy areas. Before I build my shaker, I need to build some of the pieces that are going to be sandwiched between this frame and the acetate that's going to be behind these elements, and that's going to be sandwiching in our sequins into place. So I started off by putting some score tape all around the edges of the frame. Then I'm going to remove the backing pieces and start layering this over top of the grass, because the grass needs to be between the frame and the shaker, the acetate front of the shaker. So I'm layering those grass pieces down, and then after I've added those on, I'll just trim off any excess that's hanging off the edges. I really love using my Tim Holtz shears to trim stuff off like this because it cuts through everything. Now the cat, I cut out all the images first with the Studio Katia coordinating dies for this set, and now I'm taking that cat and I'm putting it over top of the frame here. I actually wished I had remembered to attach the cat down before I attached the grass, but I was able to slip her in with not too much trouble. Now I'm going ahead and putting some more double-sided tape on the back side of the grassy area, and that's going to allow me to now attach my acetate to the back side of that frame and the grass. I'm not worried about adding any of the other elements yet because those aren't going to need to be attached just yet. I have them in place on the side there. You can see them tucking in between the grass, but I haven't attached them down yet. I'll get to that shortly. I'm first taking a sentiment here from the Simon Says Stamp Creepy Cute stamp set. This was from the special edition Halloween card kit. And I'm stamping that sentiment in some clear ink onto some Lawn Fawn SUGARPLUM cardstock. I really love that purple, and I thought it matched the purple in the plaid paper really, really nicely. I'm going to emboss that with some white embossing powder, and then I'll be able to pair that with a sentiment that I die cut using the CZ Designs and Simon Says Stamp Just Words die set. And this says hello. So my sentiment's going to read, hello, it's MEOW-lloween. And what's really fun about this MEOW-lloween sentiment is that it's part of that stamp set, which is actually a stamp set that Sherry and I co-designed together, which was really fun. We both created many of the different elements in that set, and one of the pieces that I created was the MEOW-lloween sentiments and also a bunch of the other smaller sentiments along with some of the images, including the cat from that set. So I'm going to attach the MEOW-lloween and the hello down onto my frame, and then that's going to be able to stand up off of my shaker really nicely. Here's where I'm attaching the pumpkins and also my cat down. I'm using foam tape to attach everything down. And then I also added some foam tape to the back side of the acetate so I can sprinkle in some of my shaker elements. For the shaker elements, I'm using Pretty Pink Posh Iridescent Stars. Because this is a night scene behind my cat, I thought it would be cute to have some stars floating around back there. So I added those down. And then once I've got all of the stars in place, then I'll be able to go ahead and take my acetate and sandwich that over top of all of the stars, and that's going to create my shaker. Once I have that in place, then I'll be able to trim off the excess, and I then have my shaker all built. I just needed to attach that down to that star pattern paper, which I used some foam tape because I wanted just a little bit of extra depth off of that star pattern. And there you can see our fun little shaker card that we have here featuring those super cute Studio Katia images and some fun other Halloween products. So I hope you got some inspiration on creating a cute little shaker card using Studio Katia's new MEOWY Halloween set and also a few other fun products. Also, one more quick thing that I will mention is that I added those cute little eyes on top of the cat, which are from the Doodlebug Eye Candy set. Those are really fun, playful little eyes included in there, and I think it's so much fun to play with. So if you want to see more on this card, head on over to the Simon Says Stamp blog, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next Monday with another video.